Okay, so we'll start off with a little bit of backstory on the demons who have plagued Victoria Island. Astaroth, Andras, Crokel, Amdusius, Valefor, and Marbas. Now originally this content was introduced in version 79 in something called Episode 1. And this was way back in November of 2009, just barely predating Iran's release. The way Episode 1 was teased was that they were meant to be the Adventurer Explorer story quests. And this completely predates and is separate from the episode book that was introduced in version 143 in the Red update, or as most people know it as the Explorer questline that gives you like an emblem. But I just want to make that clear that they're not related. So anyway, initially, this content was limited to only the Explorer classes. In episode 1, we saw the introduction of new questlines for each class type, which involved the demon gates and the eventual defeat of the demons. For warriors, Andras, mages, Marbas, thieves, Valefor, bowmen, Amdusius, and pirates, Crokel. And the questlines ended in a bit of a cliffhanger, but eventually, just a few months later, in February of 2010, version 83 was released, and this updated episode 1 with the conclusion of the questline, ending with Astaroth's quests and defeat, and additionally allowed Iran and the Cygnus Knights to participate in the previous quests for their respective class types. And later on, in version 85, in May of that same year, we saw a small revamp of episode 1, and later, again, that same year, in December, we received the Big Bang update in version 93. And unfortunately, a common theme with Big Bang was removing and revamping a lot of content, and this is no different with the episode 1 quests. And this is partially because Victoria Island changed dramatically, but one of the things that happened was Astaroth was taken from Sleepywood and Ant Tunnel and moved into the Dimensional Mirror during Big Bang. And there have been a lot of changes to Astaroth and all of these quests throughout the years afterwards, which has changed the party size limits and the level ranges and taken away the content and reinstated the content and moved it away from the Dimensional Mirror and put it back in the Dimensional Mirror. And it's really hard to track down everything, but I think I have it mostly situated, and I'm not really sure if I'm correct on all of this, but I hope I am, because I try to do a lot of research, but if I'm wrong, please let me know. Now, it wasn't really touched after the Big Bang update until 2012, so about a 2-year gap in version 111, Maple Class Reunion. And what happened was, I guess Astaroth was removed at some point, but the patch notes say that Astaroth was added back to the Dimensional Mirror. And then in 2013, in version 137, the Unleashed update, the Astaroth doorway got moved into the Cursed Forest, the Forest of Evil Energy map. And it's in the patch notes as well that the job and level restrictions were removed for the doorways for the demon bosses, and the level restriction for the doorway to Astaroth, and some of the quests. But according to one of the bug lists put together by the community, the level restriction was still present. And I'm not really sure when that really changed, but fast forward to May of 2014, the Astaroth doorway party restriction was removed. And I guess this was just a minor update. But also in 2014, a little bit later, in version 150, the Rising Heroes Elite update, the Forest of Evil and the Cursed Forest were both removed, which of course ended up removing Astaroth's doorway as well. And I think it was during this time when the doorway was moved to Alinia's Young Forest. And so we fast forward to sometime in 2016, the doorway had disappeared once again. But in October of 2017, in version 189, the Midnight Monster Bash, the doorway was fixed and then correctly located in the Young Tree Forest. And they say that they removed the 3+ party restriction, which they did. But with the reintroduction of this, it still required that 26 to 40 level restriction. And then in November, just a month later, I guess it had broken again at some point in that month. And so in the version 190 update, Nova, Liberation of Cadena, interacting with the Astaroth doorway was fixed to properly teleport the player to Astaroth. And sometime after that, they reintroduced the party requirement for 3+ players for some reason. I guess it was fixed shortly after. And then because this is all super confusing and it's been an issue, obviously, over the many years and updates, I guess following the trend of normal content removal, in 2019, in the version 208 Fabled Melody update, Astaroth's quests, including all of the demon doorways and Astaroth himself and all the bosses, they were removed. And I know the timeline for all of this is really confusing, and it's honestly, it's just really hard for me to track down everything because it's just not available or wasn't mentioned in the patch notes, or something broke and it just wasn't recorded anywhere for a long time. And so it's really hard to follow everything, I guess, but I can kind of see why it got removed, even though I don't like the fact that it did. But jumping into the lore, we'll start off with the warrior questline and Andras. So after your extremely basic training with Dances with Balrog, when you first become a warrior, you'd be sent to Silence of the Wolf to complete your advanced training and eventually return back to Dances with Balrog. He mentions that Pirion is near perfect, but it doesn't have enough water, which they import from Kerning City, as all of the towns of Victoria Island assist one another. However, the water supply has been decreasing, so you're tasked to see what the issue is by speaking with Irvine in Kerning City. And you and Irvine investigate the water pipes and fire hydrants, discovering some sticky gunk coming from the slimes and clearing them out. Irvine heads over to Pirion to report the work for you and suggests that you visit Chief Stan and Hennesis, who has been bad-mouthing Pirion for some reason. You head over there, but Chief Stan doesn't want to waste his breath talking to somebody from Pirion, so you visit his wife instead. Miss Ming Ming suggests that you try to appease him with a gift. He loves loud rock music, so if you bring her some pig veins, dark wooden boards, and a pair of sunglasses, she'll make a guitar for you to gift him. Chief Stan is pretty impressed by that, dubbing it Stanlika's guitar. He reveals that he's angry because he visited Pirion a while back and received a traditional statue of Pirion as a gift of friendship. But on his way back to Hennesis, he was attacked by a warrior from Pirion and the statue was stolen. But he kind of figured it was some kind of rude Pirion custom to give a present and steal it back. So now he asks for a favor, to find out who attacked him. He remembers he was knocked unconscious and he woke up in Hennesis Hunting Ground 3. So you head over there and you find a clue, an iron fragment. After Stan inspects it and he deduces that it's not even from Pirion, he realizes that he was kind of overreacting. However, he can only tell that it's not from Pirion, and he's going to need an expert's help, directing you to Rolanay in the Nautilus. After Rolanay inspects it and feels a strange force, he discovers that a magical spell was cast on this, and he directs you to Grendel the Really Old in Alinea to find out the specifics. But since he doesn't entertain strangers, you'll need to visit Bane in the Nautilus first. And Bane is somebody who travels to Alinea often. And Bane tells you that Grendel loves a very particular wine made with grapes and orange mushroom cap extract, with a glass wrapped nicely in a red ribbon. So you go through that whole process of gathering materials and Bane makes the wine, and Grendel is quite happy to receive that. He looks into the iron fragment, which he figures that the magic can actually control humans, and he can show you who it controlled in the past. Looking into Grendel's crystal ball, you see Luke, the guard who watches the dungeon entrance. Grendel knows of him, but Luke doesn't seem like the violent type, so somebody else must be behind the magic. Returning to Chief Stan and telling him everything, Stan mentions that he's the one who gave Luke his job, and it doesn't make sense that Luke would attack him, and he swears that the suspect was a warrior from Pirion, so you're sent to Luke to uncover this mystery. When you visit Luke, a junior Neki pops out and attacks you suddenly, with a training instructor's badge dropping from it. You basically don't talk to Luke at all, and you just return to Chief Stan, who thinks that it was probably the training instructor in Pirion and not Luke who attacked him, and they were likely controlled by the same force. Something weird is definitely going on, and from what he hears, there was something besides the monsters that stopped the water supply in Pirion. So he has you go and speak to Silence of the Wolves to find out what is going on. You travel all the way back to Pirion, you show this guy the badge, and he recognizes it, but his head suddenly starts hurting. You begin hearing this evil voice coming from within him that says,
"Ha ha ha, you worthless fools. You've come far. I applaud your effort, and I'll even disclose my name because of your persistence. I'm Andras. My power cannot even be compared to pitiful beings like you. It's been fun watching you fools. If you're curious about a particular matter, go ask Dances with Balrog." Ha ha.
And then Silence of the Wolves regains his consciousness and is very confused, but you just kind of dip out to go see DWB. After telling him everything, he now realizes that Andras was responsible for the water shortage that created this tension between Kerning City and Pirion, as well as attacking Chief Stan to drive this wedge between Hennesis and Pirion. You ask DWB why, but he tells you that Andras is an evil demon who was sealed in Pirion, a vicious being who enjoys the pleasure of others' pain through combat. But he wonders who could have broken the seal of such an evil figure. First, you'll have to seal Andras before anything else. And you pretty much go and defeat Andras and then report back to DWB, who is glad, but he tells you to keep training diligently, as you still haven't figured out who broke that seal, and you may encounter that powerful enemy in the future. Now moving on to the mage storyline and Marbas. Similarly, after finishing your basic training with Grendel, after first becoming a magician, and then completing your advanced training with Lucci, Grendel would then send you to the Nautilus, the whale-shaped submarine of the pirates, to go speak with Kieran. She gives you a bit of further training, but once she's received a report about something going on in Genesis, she suggests that you go find out what's wrong, as it might be a good chance for you to familiarize yourself with the different regions of Victoria Island. And Chief Stan is glad to greet you, asking you for a couple of ingredients for some cold medicine, a recipe that's supposedly been passed down for generations in Genesis, which is to mix orange mushroom caps and slime bubbles, and then take the extract in a container and then tie it with a red ribbon, and then bury it and let it sit in the ground for a day. But he doesn't really know why it needs to be tied, but it's the only way he knows how to concoct it. But after making him the medicine, he suggests that you also deliver some to Athena Pierce, the bowman job instructor, who also has a cold. And she's pretty grateful, but she mentions that something strange is going on in Victoria Island. The people of Victoria Island rarely ever catch a cold, and many people are becoming sick. It's as if somebody is intentionally spreading a virus. She suggests that you go and take some of the cold medicine over to Kerning City and ask the Dark Lord if he knows anything about the current situation. When you meet with him, he's also sick, and he mentions that some of the monsters have also been exposed to this virus, and he suggests conducting some research using their samples. So you go and gather them, and he spends the entire following night looking over them. He's discovered a number of different viruses in their fluids, meaning there are germs living in the water that they drink, which means somebody has gone out of their way to inject a virus into the water supply. He sends you to Irvine, the plumber in Kerning City, to ask if he's seen anything strange in the water. And you visit him, and he tells you a few months back he spotted a suspicious shadow lingering around while he was inspecting the water pipe. And he assumed it was just a wild animal, but now that he thinks about it, it was more similar to a monster. And he rushed over to find it, but it disappeared. And he suggests inspecting some of the fire hydrants immediately. And when you do, you find an emblem. Irvine knows that it's something only found in ancient documents, suggesting that you'll be able to find someone in Pirion who might know about it. You go visit Dances with Balrog, who looks over the emblems and begins digging through an ancient book. According to this book, the emblem signifies Marbas, a demon who was sealed in Alinea, a malicious figure that takes joy in transmitting deadly diseases. You can assume that he's responsible for all the sickness recently found in Victoria Island. And DWB asks for help stopping the spread of this virus, using wood from the dark and axe stumps, which should be enough to block the waterways. After DWB tells you that Grendel the Really Old in Alinea sealed Marbas the demon a long time ago, if you go speak with him, you can get more information about it. So traveling back to Alinea and asking Grendel, he tells you that he sealed the demon in his days of his youth, and only a person stronger than himself could have broken that seal. So it must be somebody pretty powerful. He mentions that he can no longer seal Marbas in his old age, and so you must be the one to do so. He gives you Marbas's emblem needed to enter the Demon's Dark Portal, and you go and seal Marbas, but Grendel reminds you that he mentioned there has to be an even stronger force behind everything. You have to continue training diligently. So moving on to the Thieves and Valefor, again, very similarly, you would finish your basic thief training with the Dark Lord, and then get sent to Irvine for your advanced training, and then report back to the Dark Lord. Though still a novice thief, the Dark Lord compliments you and suggests that you get some rest before his next mission for you. The following day, he asks you what you think a thief is. A thief isn't just someone who steals from others. A thief is skillful, speedy, stylish, and strong. But anyway, there's someone named Jay in Genesis who has lost something. Your mission is to find out what he's lost and then help him find whatever that might be. So traveling to Genesis, Jay tells you that he's lost his book. Well, rather than lose, it's more like he never got it back from Hill in Genesis, who borrowed it, but he's the one who lost the book. Jay would like you to find out what happened there. Hill tells you that while he was reading it, he saw a beautiful statue, and he had asked Kieran from the Nautilus to find him that statue if she ever stops by Leafray. But on his way back to Genesis, he lost the book, and he thinks that it's somewhere in the Genesis hunting grounds. After defeating the monsters and finding the book, Hill mentions that it seems a few pages are missing, but he has you take it back to Jay anyway. He was worried that he may have lost Jay's trust as he has so many useful books and he might want to borrow more in the future. But Jay's glad that you were able to find it, but he does say that the missing pages won't matter too much as it's an extremely old book anyway. And he then suggests that you go on to speak with Kieran to further your training. After you do so, she mentions there's been a huge increase in the ribbon pig population, and they've made loading and unloading the ship difficult for passengers. She's even lost something valuable because of this, and she wants you to go speak with Bane, but you need to do something first. She has you gather pig veins, dark wooden boards, and a young soul, which she uses to make a guitar for him. When you first visit him, you think to ask about the statue of Valefor that Hill mentioned before. However, he pulled an all-nighter swamped with work, and he's too tired to talk. But after giving him the guitar, he says it'll make him sing and dance no matter how tired he is. And he does tell you that he actually found the statue that came from Valefor. Anyway, he also mentions that while playing his new crazy awesome guitar that he's dubbed Kieran Vana's guitar, there was a huge burglary case in Alinea. An enormous amount of mesos had been stolen. And if you're curious, you can go see Grendel the really old in Alinea. So visiting Grendel, he welcomes you and he tells you that there's been an endless number of burglary cases in the entire region of Victoria Island, and something just isn't right. But there was a huge vault that he made in Alinea, and the living cost isn't much in town, so mesos aren't really needed to maintain their lifestyle in Alinea, but the money is more for town development. So the townspeople store their mesos in that vault, and Grendel usually manages it, but they're all gone now. And he asks you for help, as he does have some clues that might pinpoint the person responsible. A golden feather was intentionally placed visibly near the vault. He wants you to speak with Betty about where it could have came from. However, when you speak with her, she doesn't know anything about it. She does say that the people in Pirion are very knowledgeable when it comes to things related to animals though, so she sends you to speak with Silence of the Wolf to find your answer. And showing it to him, he says that just looking at it makes him feel uneasy, but he has a traditional magical spell that could reveal the mystery of the feather. But first, he needs to build a fire that emits a monster's aura, and in order to do so, he needs materials from dark stumps. After you gather everything and you begin the spell, it lights the golden feather on fire, and inside of that fire he sees a demon that looks like a lion but also resembles a mule, and he tells you to go inform Grendel of this immediately. So returning to Grendel and describing this demon, he understands why there's been an increasing number of burglaries. He's willing to bet his life that what you saw was Valefor, a demon who was sealed in Kerning City a long time ago who likes to steal from people. Grendel mentions that demons steal everything and never even give it a second thought, and you need to deliver the news to the Dark Lord in Kerning City. So you return to your new hometown and inform the Dark Lord of everything. He has no idea who could have broken the seal of Valefor, but it couldn't have been somebody ordinary. Since Valefor will try to steal anything and everything valuable, the Dark Lord needs some assistance finding some valuables, using what you know of Valefor to try and catch him. So he sends you to Shumi, who sits at the subway entrance of Kerning City and doesn't know anything but money, and even pleads with anybody walking by to find her missing coin. She would certainly have something valuable. So speaking with her, she of course has an item like that, but she won't give it to you for free. She asks people to bring her her coin, but people are too busy nowadays. They don't even take the time to listen to her, claiming that they're too busy because there's too many bubblings. So you thin out the bubblings and she gives you a large model of a coin to use as bait. And once you have it, the Dark Lord tells you that it's time to face and defeat Valefor. You of course go and you seal him, and the Dark Lord is impressed, but he says that it's just the beginning. There's a rumor going around that the one who broke the seal is extremely powerful, and you'll need to be careful and keep training diligently. I think this is getting pretty long. And I haven't even gone over the actual demon lore yet, so I think I'll split off the other two remaining Bowman and Pirate storylines and the Astaroth ending into its own separate video. So it is incredibly obvious that these demons had their inspiration from a particular source. You don't really get this kind of imagery from nothing. Notably, though, the content draws inspiration from the Ars Goetia, Latin meaning the Howling Art. This is the first section of a 17th century grimoire titled The Lesser Key of Solomon. And this old piece of work is mostly a compilation of literature from even older ages, and the actual origins simply aren't known. Now, the Lesser Key of Solomon is obviously inspired by the Key of Solomon, which in turn is attributed to King Solomon, the biblical king of Israel. But the Ars Goetia is probably the most infamous work of black magic and demonology, and it specifically has a list of 72 demons. And these are demons that King Solomon bound with his ring to build the Temple of Jerusalem. Now, as much as I love fantasy magic and stuff like that, this is real life occult literature. So I'm not even going to pretend I actually understand any of it. But I guess we'll go in order. So Andras is known as the Grand Marquis of Hell, the appearance of an angelic winged body, but the head of an owl or a raven, and he rides around mounted on a black wolf, carrying a sharp, bright sword. And he is known for sowing discord, stirring up trouble and dissension. And this is pretty evidently the theme in the warrior questline, as Andras is creating this discord between the various towns, to the point of other leaders not trusting or wanting to speak with you just because you're from Pirion, and his appearance is pretty obvious. Now, Marbas, also called Barbas, I guess, is known as a great president of Hell. He's depicted as a lion that can shapeshift into a man, and he's also known for causing and healing diseases, among other things, which is what the Mage questline is based around, as Marbas is causing this sickness to circulate around Victoria Island. And Valefor, also called Valefor or Malefar, is one of the Dukes of Hell. This demon tempts people to steal, and his appearance is that of a lion with the head of a donkey. And the Thief questline centers around this mass theft and burglaries, so yeah. Overall, I really liked the episode 1 content. I feel like it was a really solid continuation of the very, basic introductory training quests. Literally following after your first 3 quests from your first job instructor. It served as a really good way to introduce you to other areas of Victoria Island, and some of the writing is a little low quality to me though, but I still really enjoy the fact that you gather specific monster drops that narratively make sense for the quests though, rather than just, hey, gather some pigtails. The reason you need the pigtails is because they're meant to be strings for the guitars that you make. And I think they just kind of threw in these weird metal and rock references just because of the demonic stuff. But anyway, we will continue on with Amdush's, Crokel, and Astaroth next time in a totally other video. But if you want to subscribe and click the little bell icon, you can get a notification for when I actually do get around to making another video. Also, if you enjoy any of the lore, share the videos with your friends or something. It would actually help a lot. But if there's anything important that I'm missing, let me know.